This is the ASICS Magic Speed 4. And this year, it's adding FF Turbo racing foam to a full-length carbon fiber plate and an FF Blast Plus carrier. But is that enough to stand out amongst the fierce competition in the tempo shoe category? It's time to lace up the Magic Speed 4 and take it for a run. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kafuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today, I want to talk to you guys all about the ASICS Magic Speed 4. But before I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that ASICS sent to me for the purpose of review. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their shoe in this video, and no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the ASICS Magic Speed 4, and let's start with the specs. This is a 43.5 millimeter stack height shoe with an 8 millimeter drop, giving us 35.5 millimeters of stack height in this forefoot. Now there's three main components in this shoe, and I think it looks a little bit confusing, so let's break it down. There is a carbon fiber plate that you could see through the bottom of the shoe, and it's a full-length carbon fiber plate, and it's sandwiched between two layers of foam. Now it says FF Turbo on the side of the shoe, and there is FF Turbo in it, but these two layers of foam are actually FF Blast Plus, which is ASICS daily training foam, and we see it in shoes that I've really enjoyed, such as the Nova Blast 4. But there's two layers of this FF Blast Plus that's in this shoe, sandwiching that carbon fiber plate, and the FF Turbo is actually something that you can't see in the shoe, but it's a puck or an insert, a drop-in insert in the forefoot of the shoe that's right underneath where you'd be landing and pushing off if you're a forefoot striker. So there are three elements, but there isn't like a top layer, entire layer of FF Turbo. It's actually just an insert in the forefoot, and the rest of the shoe is made out of FF Blast Plus. Now in the outsole, we have ASICS Grip rubber, which is nice and grippy and has a design that's reminiscent of other racing shoes that are in the lineup currently. And moving to the upper, we're switching away from the motion wrap upper that I thought was kind of like a little bit harsh and scratchy that they used last year in the Magic Speed. And this year's is a more traditional mesh, which is flexible and stretchy, very breathable, and it has a very minimal tongue as well. Just a little bit of padding on it to ease some of the pressure that might have from the intersection of the laces, but otherwise stays out of the way, nice and flimsy, just how I like it. And in the back of the heel cup, there is a little bit of structure, but it's mostly pretty floppy with not that much padding in it whatsoever, which is something I like to see in a shoe that I'm going to be trying to run a little bit faster in. Altogether, this shoe comes in at a weight of 8.5 ounces or 242 grams. Now that we've talked about the specs on paper, let's talk about what it's like to actually run in the shoe. I feel like ASICS has succeeded in delivering a shoe that they intended to. I feel like this is a fantastic speedwork shoe or a tempo shoe, something that you would use for a bulk of workouts for your next marathon or half marathon training block. The shoe overall reminds me quite a bit of the Metaspeed Sky Plus, which is last year's racing models, but it's just a bit more mellowed out of a version of that, which makes a lot of sense because not only are we using some daily training foam to increase durability and also to kind of like soften up the overall experience, but we are also using FF Turbo, which is different than the FF Turbo Plus, which is in the racing shoes that are in this year's current racers. The FF Turbo that's in the Magic Speed 4, I feel like that's where a lot of the similarities are coming into play in terms of the quickness, the snappiness, and that overall very quick compression and decompression that I feel like I'm getting out of this shoe, which some people might kind of experience as being a little bit on the firm side. And I would say that you're not wrong if you feel like the shoe is a little bit firm. For example, when I'm taking the shoe out for daily training or like warm-up paces, I feel like the shoe is a little bit firmer than I'd like for, say, a classic daily trainer. But when you do pick up the pace a little bit, that firmness kind of translates into a really nice compression decompression kind of speed or cadence that works well with your foot strike as you're trying to run a little bit faster. So when I've taken this shoe out for workouts where I'm running at threshold paces or in between 10K and half marathon efforts, it feels really fun and snappy. And it feels like a shoe that can not only handle those workouts, but it's also a shoe that is built out of materials that can handle multiple workouts in it, and it could last a little bit longer than, say, a racing shoe does. Now, the downside of that is that the shoe is a little bit heavier than a racing shoe. But that's kind of the trade-off that you're getting, durability versus raw performance. And when you're looking for a shoe that you can use for the bulk of your workouts, you might not want to spend racing shoe prices for a lot of your workout efforts. Instead, you kind of drop down in price, you get a little bit more durability, and you take a little bit of a compromise in the raw performance of a shoe like the Magic Speed 4 or any other shoe that's in this genre of tempo shoe or speed work shoe. And you get a shoe that's really fun to work out in, and if you need to, you can also do some daily training miles in it as well. Now, if you're familiar with the previous versions of the Magic Speed, like Magic Speed 2 and Magic Speed 3, I feel like those shoes were really the training companions or the tempo shoes that worked out really well if your racing shoe of choice from ASICS was the Metaspeed Edge series. But I've always been a Metaspeed Sky fan, and for me, I felt like the previous versions of the Magic Speed were fun, but weren't exactly my favorite kind of tempo shoe. The Magic Speed 4, I feel like lines up a little bit more closely with the preferences of a Metaspeed Sky runner. And so for me, I'm really enjoying the changes that they've made to the shoe, not only in terms of adding a little bit of racing foam to it in a 4-foot insert, but also in terms of the change in the way that the shoe feels underfoot and when it feels the snappiest or the most exciting. I feel like this is the training companion from ASICS that I've been waiting for a long time. Now, to wrap up the video, I'm gonna switch things up a little bit. I'm still gonna put the buying guide and some alternatives you might wanna consider at the end of the video. But the next section that I wanna talk about, I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I'm gonna talk about where this shoe, the Magic Speed 4, might fit in the broader ASICS lineup. When I think about a running shoe brand, I always start with the Daily Trainer. And for me and ASICS, the one that I enjoy the most is the Nova Blast. And the Daily Trainer is the shoe that you're gonna do most of your running in, most of your workouts, your easy runs. And for this shoe, you could probably do a lot of your recovery runs as well. And then with the Daily Trainer, then you might also have the carbon plated racer. This is the shoe that you bring for maybe your toughest workouts and also for your biggest races, the ones that you've got double circled on your calendar and then you spend weeks and months training for. Now, the way that the Magic Speed 4 fits in is that it fits right in between these two shoes. So on a day where you're going faster than you might want to take the Daily Trainer, but on a day that's not quite as important as a race day or a big key workout day, something that could soak up a lot of miles like a Daily Trainer, but can run fast, kind of like a carbon plated shoe, that's where the Magic Speed 4 would fit in. Now, within the ASICS lineup, there's a bunch of other different shoes as well, but one other one that I think we should definitely also talk about is the Super Blast. Now, this is what I would consider like a long run shoe. Now, you certainly don't need to buy all of these shoes to be able to train for another race, but where I would use the Super Blast is for a day where you want to go a little bit longer than you might otherwise want to go in your running shoe. That's a day where the Super Blast makes a lot of sense, especially if that really long run has a lot of faster miles in it, because this has a bunch of FF turbo foam. That same foam that's in the 4-foot of the Magic Speed, there's a ton of it in here with a little bit of that FF Blast Plus, which is the carrier foam that's in the Magic Speed 4. So some of the similar foams, but there's no plate and there's a lot more racing foam. So it can go fast, but it's really fast in relation to your very long run. So that's kind of how I understand these 4 shoes within the ASIC lineup. And this position that the Magic Speed 4 has, this is the position within a brand's lineup that I would use to compare against other alternatives that are in the market. So now let's talk about those alternatives as we get to the buying guide. The Magic Speed 4 will be available starting July 1, and it's going to retail for $170. I feel like between $160 and $180 is typically where you find these tempo shoes, these training companions that go along with carbon-plated racers. Let's see where it stacks up with some of my favorites. And I think the first one that we have to absolutely talk about is going to be the Deviate Nitro 2. Now the Deviate Nitro 2 has a bigger percentage of racing foam. It still does have some daily training foam in it, and it also has a carbon fiber plate. But I think that it's still going to be the king for me. It was my shoe of the year last year, and I still really enjoy it, especially as that tempo day shoe. I do think that the Magic Speed 4 might be better the faster you go because it has a little bit extra firmness to it. But I think that the Deviate Nitro 2 does mile repeat workouts well, which I think is kind of like the key workout that I look at when I'm evaluating these kinds of shoes, but it also does daily training miles much better than the Magic Speed 4 does. So I would prefer this one even as last year's option at $160, so $10 cheaper than the Magic Speed 4. But the Deviate Nitro 3 is going to be coming out very soon, and hit that subscribe button so you could see when that review drops once I finally get a chance to review that one. Now the next shoe that I'm going to compare against the Magic Speed 4 is the shoe that might be this year's shoe of the year, and that is the Endorphin Speed 4. This shoe has all racing foam in it, Saucony's Power Run PB, but it doesn't have a carbon fiber plate, but it has a plastic plate that's in here, so it makes it a little bit less snappy. And there are a lot of elements in this shoe that make it a bit more stable at some easy paces, which may be a positive for some people, but for me, I find that it makes it feel a little bit more clunky. And the other thing that I would say in comparing these two shoes is that the Endorphin Speed 4 might lose a little bit of pep when it comes to running faster, running those mile repeats. I feel like it might be just a bit harder to run fast in the Endorphin Speed 4 relative to the Magic Speed 4. Both of these shoes do really well, but I would say that in terms of workout performance, I feel like the Magic Speed 4 might do a little bit better, but again, the Endorphin Speed 4 is really good at those workouts as well, and it does easy paces really well too. So I think that for the Endorphin Speed 4, I'd probably lean you guys more towards that shoe as well, unless you guys are more of the shorter road racing runners and your workouts are going to be a little bit faster than say a marathoner's workouts might be. Or for my bigger, taller friends, I do think that compared to both of these shoes, the Magic Speed 4 might be an option because it provides just a little bit more firmness at all pace ranges that I think you guys might need. So those are my thoughts on the Magic Speed 4. It's definitely my favorite Magic Speed that ASICS has ever made, but it's a very crowded marketplace right now, and there's a lot of really good alternatives at about the same price or sometimes even cheaper. If you have any questions about the Magic Speed 4, feel free to put them in the comments down below, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Central Time over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to talk to you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hope you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?